Kindness. We see it all around us. We see it when someone pays for someone else's coffee or holds the door open for another person. We see it in the smallest of gestures, like a smile or a kind word. But it's different when we turn on the news or social media. Oftentimes, what we hear about, what outlets are pushing, is the opposite of kind. Welcome to the Kindness Matters podcast. Our goal is to give you a place to relax, to revel in stories of people who have received or given kindness, a place to inspire and motivate each and every one of us to practice kindness every day. Hello and welcome to the Kindness Matters podcast. I am your host, Mike Rathbun. I'm trying out new ways to say that. Today I have somebody who is just completely, her spirit, her energy is joyful and giving, and I am so excited to have her. My guest today is Carol C.C. Miller, your dedicated positive life strategist, peace activator, and hug expert. Welcome to the show, Carol.
Thanks, Mike. It's nice to be here.
I see I have some editing to do already. Just started.
Hey, life is about editing, so.
Where did the CC come from?
It's just a nickname. I had friends who had little kids who could not say Carol, and then it turned into CC, and Carol Miller is such a common name. In order to find me online, using my nickname was helpful.
Yes, very helpful. And a lot of people do find you online, don't they?
I hope so, yeah.
Just judging from your kudos section of your website, it looks like a lot of people help you. So now do you consider yourself a life coach?
Yeah.
Okay. But you're so much more than that.
I wear many hats, yes.
You do wear many hats, and they all look fabulous on you. So you're a coach, and you do one-on-one coaching, but you also do public speaking and group coaching.
Mm-hmm. I would say mostly it's about creating some positive thought for people to absorb and to try out. One thing that I do like people, especially for people who don't know me, is to know I am not an absolutist. So even though my values are love, kindness, compassion, peace, I am not any of those 100% of the time. They are what I value, so I am those the majority of the time. But when you hear people say, I'm always kind or I'm always positive, I am not, and it's my life's work. So it's just something to think about.
Well, anytime I've talked to you, you have been all of those things. So in my mind, my perception is, but you've spent a great deal of your life promoting this positive energy.
Yes.
Where does that come from?
I think when I first really got into it, it was purely what maybe people like label today as toxic positivity. And It was really about not thinking about, we all face challenges in our lives. So it's really about, for me, moving through those challenges, embracing our celebrations with focusing on it from a positive, grateful, appreciative frame of mind. As I mentioned, I'm not an absolutist on that. So I still get mad, I still get frustrated, and I still get disappointed. But those feelings don't feel good to me. So I feel what I need to feel and then move forward to feeling better.
Right. Because we're all going to fall into that at some point or another. And I mean,
they're not
only human, right?
Yeah. Well, and they're not wrong emotions. It's just how much time and energy do you want to give them?
Right. Because anger, sorrow, grief, they all have their place in our lives, but we want to limit the amount of time that we give them.
Right.
Perfect.
And we want to channel them into what we do want rather than focusing on what we don't want when we're in that place of anger.
Yeah, absolutely. You're also, according to everything I've read, a fantastic hugger.
I am. I have not always been, but it has been a big passion of mine since 2008.
There's actually scientific studies that talk about the benefits of a hug, aren't there?
Yes. It's an oxytocin release. It definitely helps you feel safe and secure. Again, I like to mention like healthy hugs, because certainly people can not do healthy hugs, but the majority of them are that. And that's what I've been doing since 2008, is offering free hugs. And for me, it's just a way to let people know that they're seen and that they matter. Because I'm a big believer that if you feel seen and heard in this world, you're far less likely to harm yourself or others.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, and I've already covered this topic, but I'm really, I don't live in a city that has like a downtown area.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a highway that goes through. So to do what you do, I would have to go to a whole other city and stand out there with a hug sign, because that's an important part of it, right? The sign.
Yeah. But you know what? I mean, the people that I've had join me from all over the world, I hug in a very populated place, but not everybody does. Sometimes people get 3 hugs or 5 hugs. I mean, it's just wherever it is right for you to be. Certainly, the more people that are there, the more opportunity you're going to have to hug. But even my populated area, there are days, this was pre-COVID even, but certainly post-COVID, where I wouldn't get as many hugs. But it tended to be one of those hugs was the absolute reason I knew I needed to be there, from whatever that person said, or just the joy that you could see. I've experienced grief with people, and I've experienced celebrations with people through the hugs.
Because it's completely voluntary, the hugging, right? You know, I'm here, I will hug you if you want a hug.
Yes. And I've always told any of my huggers who join me that, yes, you have a free hug sign, and yes, you're there to offer hugs. But if there's any time you do not feel comfortable, you do not have to give a hug. So it's offering on both ends. I have I've one time not accepted a hug, but that is out of the thousands and thousands of hugs that I've given.
Right. And that says a lot. Now, did COVID kind of put a damper on the hug business?
Yes. Well, we stopped doing it for 18 months and have not, like I was doing it twice a month prior. And now we've just done it infrequently since then. And it appears to be that people aren't quite as open to hugging as they had been. But there's a lot of reasons that could be too. But I'm sure that COVID is a big player of that.
I see. So talk to me about your coaching. You're all about positivity, right?
Yes.
Go ahead.
My coaching basically, and it's really, again, more about focusing on your thoughts, your words, and your actions. If you're wanting to live a ABC life, and we all have different things that we aspire to, and yet let's say we're aspiring to live in a country cabin, and all we're talking about is how much we hate wherever we are, or hating the steps to get there. We're again, and it's so easy to focus on what we don't want when the don't want is right in front of us. So it takes a little bit more effort to, are my thoughts and my words and my actions aligned to what I want in my life? Are they holding me back from what I want in my life? And I know that when you first start, like, I don't know, there's studies that say, you know, that you may have, I probably off on the number, but like 15,000 thoughts a day. So when you're first paying attention, I mean, you're not going to catch every single thought, and you're going to really be surprised how many negative thoughts you have. And many of them are very subtle. But I tell any of my clients, I'm like, for the first week, just pay attention to what you're saying. Not yay me, horrible me, just pay attention. Because when you catch those thoughts, the good ones, then you can keep going. When you catch the ones that are less than good or holding you back, you can shift because you're aware of it. When you're aware, you're in the driver's seat. When you're not aware, life is living you. You are not living life.
I love that. I could put that on my wall.
Okay.
When you're aware, yeah. And has this always been C.C. Miller? or was there something that kind of led you to where you're at now?
I've always been a positive person, but I would say in the past, I was definitely more of that life is good, just be happy person. And the more that I stepped into the work I do and the more that I experience life, it really is like there's a gamut of life. I'm sure you know people and your listeners know people that have had horribly tragic things happen to them, and yet they still see the good in the world. And then other people who have had smaller things happen to them, and the world is out to get them. So I just find our psyche as a human interesting to know, how does one lose almost their entire family and figure out a way to not only still live, but actually find happiness with the remaining years. And somebody else is all about life is out to get them. And so it's really, for me, it's about taking control of what I have control over and not taking control over the things I don't have control over.
I feel a serenity prayer reference coming. But it's true. I mean, and I used to harp on my kids all the time about that. Is it within your control to change? No. Then don't worry about it. And just that whole mindset, and we could change so much. I started this podcast after a really, do I want to use the word toxic? Maybe.
Sure. There's toxic things.
And if you have heard this before, you can go ahead and skip ahead. But I used to do a podcast about current events, and I started it at the end of 2020. And I was in it, Carol. I was just up to here in all of the news of the day because I wanted to do topical stories, and policing in the age of George Floyd and masks and, why is Christian nationalism bad? Is it bad? And towards the end of 2021, I was just like, I was always angry. I was always sad. I was always all of these negative emotions. I could have used you back then. Where were you back then, Carol?
I was here in Chicago, Mike, here in Chicago.
Quick train ride away from St. Paul. I actually did that one time.
But I think that that's the important thing to think of, because I'm very much a person who focuses on the marginalized communities and wants justice for humanity and things like that. But I think it's easy, especially if you're not into this work, to see the complexities of the world and just shut down. Your job, Mike, your listener's job, isn't to save the world, but it is to do what you can from your space to help. That might be donating money. It might be volunteering someplace. It might be smiling at strangers. There are so many things that we can do that do have an impact on quote unquote world peace without being the ones to actually physically stop violence. I would love to be the one like to physically stop any violence that is happening, and that's out of my control. But in my control is to donate to organizations that are doing the boots on the ground kind of thing. It is my control to, in my personal life, to focus on peace. If I want more peace in the world, I need to be peaceful in my world. If I want more kindness in the world, I need to be kinder in my world. If I want more love in the world, guess what? I need to be more loving in my world. So it really is, there are steps that we can do, but so many problems in the world or even in our personal lives can seem so overwhelming, we just shut down and do nothing. So it's not about ignoring the challenges this world faces, but it is about bringing love to them from whatever perspective you can.
That's absolutely right. And there's another quote for you. Be the change, right? Be the change you want to see in the world. Oftentimes, many times when I post on social media, that's almost always one of my hashtags, be the change. Mm-hmm. Because if we want to see a kinder world, we have to be kinder, right?
Right. And I think there's a lot of people who see kindness as being a doormat as well. So you can be kind and still have boundaries. Matter of fact, it's important to have boundaries for yourself. For me, the unkindness comes in. If somebody is being unkind to me, I can absolutely have boundaries and absolutely say that's not okay with me. But if I start hurling names back at them to match their energy, then I stepped into unkindness. And again, I'm not an absolutist, so there may be times where protecting your personal space requires you to do something that you normally wouldn't. But it is my question that I ask myself pretty much daily is who do I want to be and how do I want to show up in the world? And I don't want to show up as an angry, sad, disappointed person. I have moments of all of those, but that's not who I want to be.
Right, because we are the sum of the decisions that we make, right?
Right.
I don't think that's the actual quote. There's a quote similar to that, but that's not the actual one. I just kind of pulled it out of my head. We'll go with head. So when you do what you do, and there's a temptation, and I oftentimes think this of myself, and I don't know if it's necessarily a negative thought, but to think, yeah, that's such a Pollyanna thing, thinking that we can change the world by all of us being a little kinder. Well, go ahead.
And I do think it's possible, but I think that we're also feeling like it's an immediate change. And I don't know of very many things that are immediate. It's like building upon it and building upon it. And so the more, and also what you focus on, for me, I see more of. I can walk out of the house today in Chicago in a bad mood thinking the world's out to get me. And I'm going to hear every car horn honking. I'm going to experience all the anger and frustration because it's there. And if I walk out the door thinking people are kind and happy and helpful, I'm going to see the people who are holding the door open for people and the people who are letting other people merge into traffic. So it's really, again, I mean, there are horrific things that are happening in people's lives and in the world. I'm not here to negate any of it, but I don't have control over changing that except for emulating and doing my part, whether it's donating, volunteering, voting, any of those things that I can do to bring a little bit more peace in the world.
Sure. Absolutely. I love that. Yeah, because it's true. Ever since I started this particular podcast, and I've been posting about it on social media and, sharing quotes about kindness, I see a lot more in my feed. I see more kindness and less negativity. And that's, I don't know, I did not know that was a thing beforehand, but apparently it is.
Well, and it's in the scientific world, it's called your reticular activating system. So there's so many things that are going on, like even things right now that we can't see because there's so many things just happening, that our brain can't function at all. So I'm sure that you or your listeners have heard, like you buy a car and now all of a sudden you see yellow Subarus everywhere, where 2 weeks ago you didn't see any of them. It's because you have now filtered that into your system to like, oh, I'm interested in yellow Subaru. So now all of a sudden you see more of them. So it's really about that focus on who do you want to be? How do you want to show up? And what can you do to make a difference for yourself and others?
And really, that's kind of the heart of your coaching, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because we see it all around us, and yet for some reason I can see somebody, my old self, could see somebody holding the door open for somebody, and I'd be like, well, what a sucker, you're standing out in the cold and holding that door open for somebody, and they probably don't even care. But now I see that and I think, God, what a kind thought. What a kind thing to do. And it's just
be aware of it. Yeah.
Reticular activating system?
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe I said that without messing it up. Just the kind of guy I am. If there's a hard word, I'll mess it up.
There's many words that I mess up, so.
Well, you are just such a powerhouse, Carol. See, I messed up your name.
You said Carol. How is that messing up my name?
Well, it took me a second. I forgot it. I had to look over here where it says Carol Miller. Oh, my goodness. But I love what you do in the world, and I love that you're putting all this out there, and that you're helping people who might otherwise be walking around depressed or frustrated or angry or what have you, and you're teaching them. Is that a correct phrase? Teaching them, helping them.
So. It's encouraging as well. Like for me, it's an invitation. I am not here to tell people they have to be positive, that they have to be kind or anything. I'm inviting them to experience it and see how it feels for them. And I will say, even with my coaching clients, when they start really feeling their feelings instead of ignoring them, it's work. Like when you feel those hard feelings and it's easier to just shrug it off and pretend you're happy, it takes some work. But on the other side of that is where the true magic lies.
Sure. Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, I thank you so much for sharing all of this with me, Carol. I really do appreciate it. All of Carol's information, her website especially, will be in the show notes, and also ways to follow her on social media. I consider the time that you spent with me today a gift, Carol, and I appreciate it, and I thank you for that gift.
I thank you. It was a lot of fun. Nice to chat with you.
Very nice to chat with you as well. Take care and have a great week.
You too.
If you have never met Carol C.C. Miller, you wouldn't realize that she is just a 4'10" powerhouse of kindness and positive energy, and it was such a great thrill to be able to talk to her today on the show. All of her links will be in the show notes. So if you think you'd like her to coach for you or to speak to your group or organization, I'm sure she would be absolutely thrilled to do so. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Kindness Matters podcast. It's been just such a positive experience for me to be involved in this, and I greatly, greatly appreciate the gift of your time in listening to this. We will be back again next week, but of course, in the meantime, be that person who roots for others, who tells a stranger that they look amazing, and encourages others to believe in themselves and their dreams. You have been listening to the Kindness Matters podcast, and I'm your host, Mike Rathbun. Until next time, have a fantastic week.